I'm delighted to be here on the edge of Wimbledon with a professional British tennis player called Francesca Jones, who this year made her debut in the main draw. She qualified earlier in 2021 for the Australian Open. She is making great strides through the tennis world. And doing this despite the fact that as a child and throughout her life she's been coping with a rare genetic condition called ectodermal Dysplasia. So Fran, first of all, tell me about the condition and how it's affected you.
Well, I was born with ED syndrome, and obviously that affects my hands and my feet. There are other side effects, such as I have less teeth, and also I was born with a cleft palate. So obviously multiple barriers that I had to encounter. But ultimately, when I was 4 or 5 years old, I started to become aware of the condition, and it didn't really faze me that much. So it's just something that's part of who I am, and yeah, I just embrace it.
And you're now patron of the ED Society. What would you say to children who maybe have the same condition as you, or indeed their parents?
I think it's important not to limit your child, and not let your child limit themselves, because I think, or their self, because I think it's you know, at the end of the day, it's important that you let your child do what they want and attempt to do what they want and give their everything. I think everything in this life is about attitude. So if they want to try something and they can do it at the best of their ability, that should already be valued. It's about the ability of that child and the ability of their mental strength to work to the best of its potential.
And we're here surrounded by children playing on the lake. And were you sporty always as a child?
No, not at all, actually. I was completely focused on my academics. It wasn't necessarily sports that was my passion, but I think once I started playing tennis and obviously was told at a very young age that it wouldn't be a possibility to take it very far, I decided that I wanted to give it a go and have a crack at it. I think, you know, for me it was all about, I want to just try my best and see where it can take me, and that's very much the attitude that I have today. I try and make sure, and did at the time, that I obviously didn't go overboard. It was about understanding the way that my body could work with the sport, not necessarily using the athletes that have been, or the people that have been molded into athletes. I needed to mold myself into my own version of an athlete.
And have you had to adapt the way you play tennis compared to other people, or indeed your equipment?
Yeah, I mean, of course, my racket, my grip is very, very small. So I'm thankful that I have a great sponsor in Wilson, and the fact that they always customize all of my rackets. So the grip was obviously a big thing. I remember when I was a kid and obviously didn't have a sponsor, the stringer at my club would just like shave the wooden grip down and would make it as small as possible to suit my hand. And of course, like my hand, especially my right hand, is significantly smaller than my left, and significantly smaller than your other standard tennis player's hand. But that was a big adaptation that I had to make. I think for me, another thing is obviously the way that I load my feet in the movement, and making sure that I'm not kind of constantly looking for my bigger toe, because if not, you know, that will have an effect on my hips, and something that I'm very, very aware of. But it's about understanding my body, and I think every athlete does that anyway. So for me, it really is just maybe taking that extra little step, or, you know, paying attention to the extra details. But in general, I think I try and make sure that I just work in the way that another tennis player would, but ensure that no stone is left unturned.
Is there anything you would say that ED has prevented you from doing, or that you want to do but you're worried you might not be able to?
No, not really. I think I've never looked at something and thought I can't do it. I think I have looked at things and said I can't do it right now because it may affect my tennis career. So we were actually just discussing boxing, and boxing is something I've always wanted to get invested in. But obviously with my wrists and my hands, if I, you know, punched in the wrong way, or got, you know, some sort of impact that would affect the way that my wrists would move, or anything like that, then of course I'm risking my tennis career. So I think any decisions I've made about not doing anything have been to protect my career in tennis, just like, you know, any athlete wouldn't go skiing in the middle of a season. So no, there's nothing really that I've thought I can't do, but I think also my focus has been solely on tennis.
And this has been a terrific breakthrough year for you. Just explain what you've achieved.
Yeah, I mean, I passed qualities of Australian Open, and I reached my career high ranking so far. Obviously, you know, first Wimbledon this year, but I think for me it's it's not enough. So I'm definitely working for a lot more. My ambitions are big, and I want to fulfill my potential. I know that's a lot of potential. There's still so much room for improvement. Yeah, I'm very much competing with the best in the world. So it's about understanding the next steps, which steps I have to take to keep providing an optimal performance every time I step on the court.
When you look at people in the world or sports people, who has motivated you? Who have you found inspirational?
Funnily enough, I'd say that one of my motivators was Aung San Suu Kyi, because she is a lady who deserves the utmost respect for everything she's done. I think, when you find yourself in that position in a country that is so difficult and so limiting, and you still refuse to I guess, surrender to the rules of the country that you know are wrong. I think that sort of mentality of going after something that you want and you feel is right is something that I've always respected. Again, Nelson Mandela would be another person. I think I wouldn't say, as I said at the start, I've always been very academic. So for me, my inspirations haven't necessarily come from athletes. That said, I've always been very open and honest that I am a bit of a Serena fangirl, because again, she's someone else that when I would go to Wimbledon when I was 5-6 years old, I'd watch her on centre court, and she'd just be relentless on the court. And I think people need to learn to be relentless in their own unique ways, because that way, of course, you're going to get things thrown at you, and you're going to go through difficult times. But if you can be relentless, you're going to shorten the period that you might struggle as a result of those barriers.
Fran, thank you so much for your openness, for your honesty, and I think for the inspiration that you provide for others facing any challenge, frankly, but particularly in raising awareness of the ED Society. Thank you.